the 2nd of January 2001 at 11 a.m. Two boys were out walking their dog in Les Mureaux in Yvelines. In a pile of debris in a car park, they found an abandoned sleeping bag. Inside it was the blood-splattered corpse of a young woman. The autopsy revealed multiple head wounds, as well as marks on her neck. The victim had been strangled. Her liver and spleen had ruptured. She hadn't been raped. The body was soon identified as that of being Jeanette O'Keefe, a 28-year-old student from Australia. Jeanette was last seen on the Champs-Élysées on the 31st of December 2000. How did her corpse end up on this housing estate on the outskirts of Paris? Owing to an absence of witnesses or clues, this case remained unsolved for years. But now, 8 years later, new evidence has come to light, and a suspect has been named, a man named Adriano Araujo Da Silva. February 17, 2009 at 6:30 a.m., he was arrested at his girlfriend's house and taken to the crime squad in Versailles. That marked the start of his 48 hours under suspicion. Custody is a measure of constraint imposed by a police detective on someone who's suspected of committing or attempting to commit a crime or an offense. This 48-hour period in custody has been reconstructed by actors based on police interviews.
Can you state your identity and your date of birth, please?
So, my name is Adriano Michel Araujo Da Silva. I was born 6th of June 1975 in Macapá, Brazil, to Emmanuel and Raimonda Maricotte. I am French.
When the young woman was found on the 2nd of January 2001, do you remember what you were doing?
It's too long ago. I don't remember.
So, I acknowledge that I am implicated in the investigation that you are conducting following the discovery of a young woman at Les Mureaux. Is that okay?
Yes, fine. You're the one who knows how to write.
Had you heard about the murder before today?
Yes, vaguely. A neighbour of mine received a summons.
Did you get a summons as well?
Yes.
Didn't you get several?
Yeah.
And did you go in?
No.
The police summoned you, but you didn't go in.
I wasn't involved. I had nothing to do with it.
It's an interview where we let him give testimony. We call it a tactical interview. The questions appear innocuous. So he's thinking, I'm giving them my version of events and they're not reacting. This is going okay. It allows us to see the contradictions, the inconsistencies, the lies, and sometimes the absurdity in the answers we are given. But he's giving himself away. It's a cut-and-dried case, and we can tell when he's lying.
We've got evidence. We know things. We just need to check that the person's statement concurs with the evidence that has been brought to light throughout the course of the investigation.
Do you know where the body was found?
My neighbour said Les Mureaux, but I don't know exactly.
There, in the car park below your flat?
Yes, that's behind where I live, 2 minutes away, in the gardens.
Do you ever go for a walk near where you live?
Yes, sometimes, when I'm with my children.
Do you want to volunteer any information about the case?
I won't say things just to please you. I can't wait to hear why you think this is to do with me.
He can't wait to find out what we know, and we can't wait to find out the truth. These police interviews are a bit like a game of cards, like a game of poker. This is the first interview. We have 48 hours ahead of us in which to lay our cards down one by one, but the idea at the outset is to get him to do the talking.
Lieutenant Kathy thinks she holds enough evidence to get Araujo da Silva to crack. He has no access to the files. She's hoping for a confession. She needs to know the circumstances surrounding the murder She's been working on this case for 8 years and has become obsessed with solving it.
I'd been in the crime squad for 6 months. I was a young police lieutenant, fresh out of college. This case had an impact on me because Jeanette O'Keefe was about 20 when she died. That's how old I was when the crime squad took over the case. It's not the sort of investigation that you give up on easily. Here, look, this is a photo of the girl who was murdered. Do you know her?
No, I don't. I've never seen her before.
Take a closer look.
Have you ever spent New Year's Eve somewhere other than Les Mureaux, in Paris or elsewhere?
I don't think so, no.
So you've never spent New Year's Eve on the Champs-Élysées?
No.
You weren't there on the 31st of December 2000 then?
I don't think so, no.
You don't think so? Aren't you sure?
I wasn't there.
The Champs-Élysées is where Jeanette O'Keefe was last seen on the night she disappeared. Before going there, she'd had a long day, punctuated with missed rendezvous. On the morning of the 31st December 2000, Jeanette handed back the keys to the room she'd occupied for the past 3 months in a student residence hall in Savigny-sur-Orge. She was due to leave Paris on the 2nd of January to join her sister Denise in New York, and she'd planned to spend her last couple of days in Paris ringing in the new year with Elise, a French girl with whom she'd become friendly.
She was meant to be meeting Elise at a metro station. They had arranged a time and a place. Jeanette was carrying a big rucksack, another big bag, and her camera, so she was heavily laden. She had arranged to meet Elise at this metro station, but they never found one another.
Did Jeanette go to the wrong metro station? Did she confuse Place de Clichy with Marie de Clichy? Elise didn't have a mobile phone, so she couldn't call her. Jeanette was alone and didn't know where to go, so she phoned one of her friends, Anthony, who suggested they meet on the Champs-Élysées. But he didn't show up at the agreed time and place on the evening of December 31st either.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You have to imagine what it's like on the Champs-Élysées on New Year's Eve. It's party central. No one is alone. People are all in couples or in groups. They're out with friends. They're happy to be there. They kiss. And she's there with her bags and her heavy rucksack. It's cold. She doesn't know where to go. She's disappointed because her 2 contacts in France have let her down. She's on the verge of tears, or even sobbing.
Jeanette had no option but to phone her friend Elise's mother, who suggested she go to their house in Conflans-Sainte-Honorine.
You need to understand what that meant for Jeanette. The conversation was all in French. The journey by rail was quite complicated. Elise's mother told her to phone again when she'd arrived at Conflans-Sainte-Honorine station, and she'd come and get her. Only she never phoned. Why? Because that was the night Jeanette met her murderer.
Elise's mother is thought to be the last person to have spoken to Jeanette before her body was discovered on the 2nd of January 2001.
Are you violent with women?
I'm not naturally violent, but I did once give Virginie a slap. She deserved it.
Has anyone pressed charges against you?
She went to the police about that incident, and they called me in and gave me a talking to, but no further action was taken.
Is she the only woman you've hit?
Hit is a big word. It was just a slap.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that? Do you wish to clarify anything?
No, nothing.
I'll print it off then.
When we got to the end of the first interview, he was particularly stressed. He was still convinced he was going to get away with it. So far, we hadn't really asked him anything too probing, apart from whether he was violent. That annoyed him a bit, but being violent towards women didn't necessarily make him a murderer.
When we interviewed Araujo Da Silva, we'd never seen him before. We didn't know him. Not saying we knew nothing about him, but we didn't know what he was really like. We just listened to him and asked him to explain himself and tell us the truth.
The interrogators are the professionals. The person being interrogated is always an amateur.
The first interview is over. Adriano Araujo Da Silva is sent to his cell at the beginning of the afternoon. The break allows the detainee to rest and think. Meanwhile, Kathy interviews his ex-girlfriends, who paint a picture of a disturbing man.
We interviewed other people, including one of his ex-girlfriends, who told us that he had hit her as well. She was signed off work for a few days and had to wear a neck brace. So this was a more violent outburst than the slap he alluded to in the first interview.
Adriano Araujo Da Silva has been in police custody for almost 11 hours now. It started early this morning with his arrest. The second interview is about to begin.
This is the interview where we get somewhere and he understands what's going on. He clearly hasn't understood yet. Now we're going to start asking him questions that unnerve him. It's not exactly provocation, but we need to trigger a reaction. Well, you've had a bit of time to reflect. Do you want to stick to your statement, or have you got anything further to tell us?
I haven't done anything wrong.
Okay. But you lied to us. Virginie wasn't the only girl you hit. What happened with Magali?
Look, I gave Virginie a slap because she deserved it. Now it's Magali. That doesn't make me a violent rapist or a murderer.
Who said anything about rape? Why is he talking about rape? What has that got to do with this case? There was no evidence of sexual abuse on Jeanette O'Keefe's body. We don't know exactly what happened. This might provide a motive. Perhaps it was a sexual encounter that went wrong, a move made by an insistent guy on a girl who wasn't interested. Maybe she tried to run away and he grabbed her and things got out of hand.
Did you hit Magali or not?
It was the same with Virginie. Okay, so I slapped her, but she drove me to it. But she's so pathetic, she went to a hospital. She got signed off work and came back with a neck brace. All that for a slap. That's going too far.
She was pregnant at the time. You're quite quick to raise a hand to women, aren't you?
No, it's just that she pushed me too far. She shouldn't have tried to wind me up. Yes, I gave Virginie and Magali a slap, but only because they drove me to it.
When we hear that, it's a bit disconcerting. He's been brought in the context of a murder investigation, and our questioning has directed him to talking about being violent towards women. We've got a young woman who was sexually assaulted and he's denying it. He doesn't realise what he's doing. So, we carry on and we play our next card. Do you know what DNA is?
Yes, it's the test you did earlier, with the cotton bud in my mouth.
Yes, that's basically it. DNA is your genetic imprint. It's like a fingerprint. It's unique to you.
DNA leaves a unique imprint, like a fingerprint.
Is that clear enough for you? Do you understand?
Yes.
Because it just so happens that we found your DNA on the body of the victim.
That's impossible. I don't know her. I've never seen her before, so how can my...
DNA.
Listen, we're not making this up. Look, it's written down here. So, what do we do now? We put him in an awkward position without giving too much away. We talk to him about DNA, but we don't say where on the body his DNA was found. We give a little bit more away each time, but we withhold a lot.
The interrogation procedure is strategic. The CID officers have a strategy in place. They reveal the facts gradually, one by one. He's not given all the facts straight away. That would be too easy. They gain his trust, and once they have it, they deliver the blow. By the time that piece of paper with the DNA results is brought into play, he's easy prey.
That's impossible. I don't know her. I've never seen her before, so how can my...
That's exactly what we were wondering. It's definitely your DNA. It's been scientifically proven. Do you understand that?
Yes, but there must be some mistake. The scientists must have got it wrong. I don't know that girl. I've never seen her before.
You do realise we're talking about scientific evidence. You're going to have to explain why we found your DNA on the body of the victim.
I'm not going to apologise for something I didn't do.
Let me explain how we traced this back for you, OK? In February 2008, you broke through a police cordon and you were arrested. A DNA sample was taken and put in the DNA database, where we record any DNA found at crime scenes along with the DNA of people who commit offences, like you did that day. It just so happens that the database found a match and revealed that the DNA found on the body of the victim was the same as yours. You must understand that this is indisputable scientific evidence.
It was a high-profile case, so the laboratory set to work as soon as they received the samples from the police. Each individu's DNA is distinct. It's impossible, or at least highly improbable, for two people to have the same DNA. So, the evidence is conclusive.
So, explain to us what your DNA was doing on a corpse found near your home. Go on, tell us.
I don't know what to say. I'm telling you, it's impossible. There must be some mistake. It's not possible.
Well, I'm telling you that it's not possible for you to be telling me that it's not possible, because you're denying a scientific fact here.
I don't know what to say. I just don't know.
He's not lashing out. He's not desperate. He's not proclaiming his innocence. He's not shouting about the injustice of it all.
At this point, it's clear in his mind that he's done nothing to incriminate himself. Just because your DNA has been found doesn't mean you have committed the crime in question.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
I can't explain the presence of my DNA on this woman. I understand what you say about it being a unique imprint. I don't know how to explain it. What you're saying is impossible. Shall we leave it there?
Do you want to add anything?
No, nothing.
This second interview hasn't got us any closer to the truth.
Denying the presence of the genetic imprint is absurd. It's pointless.
They play the DNA card. They're sure they have the proof that Mr. Araujo Da Silva really did meet Jeanette O'Keefe. And he didn't just meet her, he had physical contact with her.
He's going to have to explain why his DNA was found on Jeanette O'Keefe's body.
The second interview is over, and Araujo Da Silva returns to his cell. He turns down the offer of an evening meal. He seems to be gradually retreating into himself. Lieutenant Kathy says she's exhausted and goes home to rest. The third interview will take place without her. So far, the detainee, Adriano Araujo Da Silva, hasn't given them any clues as to his connection with Jeanette O'Keefe. 15 hours and 15 minutes after his arrest, he's interviewed again, late in the evening.
Have you got anything new to tell us?
I don't want to change what I've already told you.
So you stand by your statement?
That's right.
So your memory hasn't been jogged at all?
You won't get a confession. I didn't do what you're accusing me of.
I will never confess to the crimes the investigators are accusing me of. But Adriano, you do realise you haven't got a leg to stand on, don't you? It's not going to be easy to defend yourself in court.
Even if I get a life sentence, I'll never confess.
But you do understand that it was your DNA.
All right, stop lecturing. I'm not stupid.
During his third interview, he goes from being irritated to being properly annoyed. He's exhausted. He's had enough of being asked the same questions about the DNA. But we're still waiting for an answer, so we're going to carry on asking these questions even if he doesn't want us to.
How do you explain the fact that your DNA was found on the victim then?
That's just it. I can't explain it. There must be some mistake. It's not possible.
I can't explain why my DNA was found on the victim. Let me give you a clue. Your DNA was found under her fingernails. How do you explain that? That means it was more than just superficial contact.
If the DNA is under the fingernails, that means it's more than just superficial contact. It's not DNA lifted from an object found in the proximity of the body. It's under the fingernails, so this is a case of scratching. This was a young woman acting in self-defense.
If they told Araujo Da Silva from the outset that his DNA was found under Jeanette O'Keefe's fingernails and in the sleeping bag containing her corpse, the response would likely not be the same as if they were simply to ask him, "Do you know Jeanette O'Keefe?" It's a technique used to challenge people about the statements they've made.
Are you really sure? You've never seen her before? You've never met her?
For the 100th time, I'm telling you, I don't know this girl. I've never seen her.
Is that what you plan to tell the jury?
I'm not going to confess to something I didn't do.
Once again, your DNA was found under Jeanette's fingernails. So, you must have met her, right?
Did anyone see me? Your tests are wrong. I've never had any contact with her, not from close up nor from a distance.
If your DNA is found under her fingernails, that means you came into contact with her. You don't get that from a casual encounter. You didn't just go for a drink together.
It's a done deal as far as you're concerned. I'm guilty. You've made up your mind about me. No need to look at any other leads.
We've been following other leads for 8 years, remember? And we've exhausted all of them. Your DNA was found somewhere it couldn't have got just by chance.
I've had enough of this. Let God be my judge, not you. He knows I'm not lying. And do you know what? I'm sick of this. That's enough. Stop. I'm not saying anymore. Put me back in my cell.
So you want to stop there? You don't want to explain yourself?
Yes, stop. This is doing my head in.
You're arguing with the person you're interviewing. You're obviously not going to get a confession out of them.
We've come to the end of the line. We've pushed him to his limits. It's clear we won't get any more out of him tonight.
I am sure the police are aware of the clock ticking. They know it will soon be time to hand him over to an examining magistrate. And handing over Araujo Da Silva at this stage of the proceedings means handing over someone who is contesting the facts. So they're going to have to come up with something.
The investigators have reached an impasse. Adriano Araujo Da Silva is still denying the facts. The morning after his arrest, on February 18, 2009, Lieutenant Cathy arrives early at Versailles Police Station. She meets with her colleague, Captain Patricia, and together they hatch a plan.
I suggested to her that we try interviewing him to see what happens.
The fact that we were the first to confront the truth, to goad him about his digital imprint, to ask him to explain himself, that's bound to stir up feelings of resentment.
He'd be dealing with a new approach, a new style of questioning. That might break him down. It's a psychological mechanism.
Changing the interviewer won't necessarily lead to a confession.
It's up to us to get the detainee to realize that he has no choice but to explain himself.
It's a new approach. It will either work or it won't. Either way, it has the advantage of introducing a new angle.
The detainee has been in custody for over 32 hours. The police officers have left Araujo Da Silva in his cell overnight and all morning. to rest, and perhaps even to rethink things.
We've given Araujo time to understand and reflect on what we told him.
He's had plenty of time out to try to come up with an explanation for the presence of his DNA on the corpse. How is it going?
Very well, actually.
Have you seen a doctor? Have you eaten?
I've seen a doctor and a lawyer. I've drunk a bit. I was offered food, but I don't feel up to eating.
Did you get any sleep last night?
I haven't been able to sleep since I was picked up at my girlfriend's house. I keep having nightmares.
We always ask how the person is. We don't want to be accused later of having put them under too much pressure. So it's important to ask if they're okay, if they've been treated well, if they've eaten, if they've rested, if they've seen a doctor, if they requested one, if they've seen their lawyer. That way, at least we won't be asked any awkward questions afterwards about any maltreatment during the period of police custody. Do you want to revise your statement?
I don't want to change anything, but I remember something that happened around that time. I witnessed an attack on a girl on a neighbouring estate. I was putting out a hedgehog that I hadn't managed to save. It must have been around midnight, or a bit later. I'm not sure, because I never wear a watch. On my way back, I witnessed an attack on this girl by two black guys wearing baseball caps. When I went over to her, she was lying on the ground. She was lying on her side on her elbow. When I drew level with her, she got up and jumped on me. Maybe she was scared I'd attack her. Then she flipped and became hysterical. She started hitting me, lashing out the way girls do, scratching my face, my nose, my neck.
I know full well that these are lies that he's coming out with. He's not at all convincing, and at no point does he hesitate and say, yes, maybe that was what happened. No, he was unwavering in his explanations. Can you describe these individuals?
It was dark, but I saw two black guys. And the girl was a brunette. She was white.
And how was she dressed?
She was wearing blue jeans and a jumper. I think it was grey.
What did she say? Did she have an accent?
No, she didn't have an accent. She just kept shouting, "Police, police!"
What colour was her jumper again?
Grey. Yes, it looked grey from where I was standing.
And blue trousers, right? Were they blue?
Yes, like jeans.
The aim when we're asking these questions is to drive him into a corner, to show him that we know he's talking nonsense. Two black guys. And was she bleeding? Was she bleeding, Mr. Araujo?
The man said it was my DNA.
Yes.
If it was my DNA, that means the girl who died was the girl I saw.
Yes.
I don't want to go to prison for something I didn't do.
Did you know a girl had been found dead in the neighbourhood?
Yes, the neighbours were discussing it, but I didn't make the connection between these two stories.
You didn't make the connection. You never linked the attack you witnessed to the story you overheard about a girl's body being found?
No.
But you admit that it was your DNA found under the victim's fingernails.
Obviously, yes, for sure.
I think Mr. Araujo is crying. Yes, because he's been backed into a corner and he's feeling the pressure. He's starting to understand that he's going to have to tell us the truth about what happened. He's trapped. He trapped himself in a way by saying, I met this girl and she scratched me, etc., etc. It's definitely his DNA that was found under the victim's fingernails. He's been forced to acknowledge it. It's a form of confession.
He's been caught lying about something he won't be able to deny later. As we all know, and as Descartes said, once you've been lied to once, you can never trust that person again. It's very difficult for a defendant who's been caught lying to have any credibility after that. The last sentence he utters is, I'm scared I'll go to prison for a crime I didn't commit. That could also be interpreted as, it wasn't me, but I know I've already been condemned. Can we take a break, please? Can you stop filming?
Is something wrong?
No, I'm fine.
Do you want a coffee or a glass of water?
Glass of water, please.
Once he's broken down, we ask him lots more questions, which destabilizes him. He can't answer them because he was lying. That's when I sense that things are starting to shift. So I don't stay behind my desk. I move my chair and turn to face him. I get up close to him. I remember taking his arm and touching him as if to say, react. You have to react now. You've got to come round. Now, you need to tell us what really happened, for your own sake and for the sake of your children. Think of them. They've got a right to know. You need to tell us, for their sake. My approach is to try to manipulate people's feelings, to bring their personalities into play. I try to understand who they are and what their life is like. Most human beings have a raw nerve somewhere, whether it's their family, or their friends, or their job. You just need to find the weak spot that will make them crack up. When they grow up, they'll need to know why you went to prison. When I mention his children, I sense that he doesn't feel that strongly about them. That doesn't appear to be the weak spot I was talking about. It was the wrong angle to take. What about Magali and Virginie? They have a right to know as well, so they can try to understand. I talk to him about his mothers, because he's got two mothers. I say, the same goes for them. They need to understand what will happen to them, what will they think. But the same thing happens. He doesn't respond. There's no emotion. He doesn't seem to care about those women. What about Joanna? How will she react when she hears? She relies on you, doesn't she?
I love Joanna.
Precisely. You can't let her down. If you care about her, you need to tell her what happened.
She wouldn't understand.
Yes, she would. The only person who mattered to him at that moment was his current girlfriend, Joanna. He seemed really upset about her. Joanna loves you. She's phoned 3 times since yesterday to find out how you are. She doesn't understand what's going on.
Did you phone her? What did you tell her?
Nothing so far.
Please don't say anything to her.
She'll find out eventually, because you're in big trouble here. Do you understand that? You'll be put on trial, and I reckon you'll be convicted.
How many years will I get?
The maximum sentence for murder is 30 years. But it could be less. Juries don't like it when defendants insist on denying the evidence.
I need a break. I need time to think. I need a cigarette.
This is a turning point. It feels as if the time has come, but he isn't quite ready to confess everything yet.
I need to talk to Joanna. I need to call her.
You want to phone your girlfriend? That's not possible.
Please, I must speak to her. Afterwards, I'll tell you anything you want to know, but first I need to speak to her.
Phone calls aren't allowed while you're in custody, Mr. Araujo.
Then I won't say another thing.
My colleague and I don't really know what to do, because you're not allowed to make phone calls while you're in police custody. So we said to one another, what do? Do we say no and risk him clamming up and never giving us his version of events, or do we say yes? We didn't spend hours deliberating saying, shall we let him or not? It was now or never, so we said you can make a call. You've got 5 minutes, but we'll put it on speakerphone so we can listen in to your conversation. You've got 5 minutes.
Hello?
Hi, baby.
Are you still at the police station? Adriano, what's going on? What's up?
Calm down. I haven't got much time to talk to you. You know I love you, right?
I love you too, but what's going on, Adriano?
Please, forgive me. You need to know that I've killed a woman.
What? What are you talking about? That's not true. I don't believe you.
Calm down. It was a long time ago.
But that's impossible. You're talking nonsense. I know you. You didn't do this, so stop it.
I did do it.
It's not true. I don't believe you. Stop it. How did you manage to keep that from me?
I'm sorry. Please forgive me, sweetheart. I love you.
He's emotional. He sounds sincere. He seems distraught. This can't be easy for him, because he knows he's going to have to explain himself. He'll feel relieved about this. He needed to confess in this way.
I think he only told Joanna he'd killed a woman a few years ago because he knew that he was going down. Whether it's true or not, he needs to tell Joanna himself, because she means the world to him.
At the end of the afternoon of the second day, after more than 34 hours in custody, the detainee Adriano Araujo Da Silva confessed to his crime. But he only confessed to it to his girlfriend during an unofficial telephone conversation. The camera had been switched off at his request, so there's no trace of his confession.
Of course it was a risk, but his state of mind was such that we trusted him. We didn't have much choice, to be honest.
This is a critical moment for the police. Will Araujo Da Silva keep his promise and explain to them what really happened? Or will he immure himself in silence?
We're going to switch on the camera again, Mr. Araujo. And you are going to explain to us what happened on the night of 31st December 2000. Would you rather we asked you questions, or do you want to give us your version without us interrupting?
No.
Are you refusing to explain yourself?
I'll tell you everything, but I don't want you to ask me questions.
Fine. Usually, we like to get a lot of detail. Only on this occasion, we can't, because his time in custody is nearly up. He's exhausted, and if we go too far, he might clam up. What's important is that we hear what he has to say for himself.
We were on the Champs-Élysées. It was an incredible night. We were celebrating New Year's Eve. She liked me. She was alone, and so was I. We went for a walk. I explained my situation to her. I told her that I had 3 children, that I was single, and that I lived in Les Mureaux and worked as a temp. She told me that she was from Australia and over here on holiday. She had a laptop, and she was going to Conflans-Sainte-Honorine. I invited her over to my place. She agreed to come. We took the train to Les Mureaux. Then we got off the train and walked to my flat. I should point out that I had no furniture in my flat at the time. I just had a green sleeping bag, and I had bought some sheets to create a little love nest. There was no television. We chatted. It was late. We kissed, and then we made love. I wanted to do it again, but she said she wanted to leave and go to the police and tell them she'd been raped. That's when I hit her, over the head with a sledgehammer or an iron rod. I forget which. She lost consciousness and was lying on the ground. Then, after 10 minutes, she regained consciousness. I realized that what I'd done wasn't good. She started to struggle when she realized I'd hurt her, so I climbed on top of her and put my hands around her neck. At first it was to calm her down, but then she started scratching me. So I tightened my grip, and she lost consciousness again. Then I went into the bedroom. I took an extension lead and put it around her neck. That's when I realized I was trying to kill her. I wanted to call for help, so I took her into the bathroom. I wanted to wash her. There was blood everywhere. Then I panicked. I didn't know what to do. She was in my arms, and that's when I realized she was dead.
He's not in tears. He's not sorry. He's telling his story, telling us what happened, the way he would tell any story. There is no sense of remorse or affection, no sense of sadness. He's cold-hearted.
I needed to get rid of her body, so I put her in the green sleeping bag and threw her out of the window. I live on the 4th floor. I didn't go downstairs immediately. I stayed in my flat for 2 hours. Then, I don't know what came over me, but I went downstairs and picked her up and dragged her to the car park. The end.
He says, the end. When he's finished telling his story, it's as if he's glad to have got it off his chest and told us what happened. He's relieved, but now he wants to move on. He seems to be saying, there, are you happy now? I have told you everything. Now what? All that concerns him at the end of the interview is what will become of him. At no point did he talk about the victim's family or the victim herself. He never mentioned her. Next, we write up a report and print it. The printer is in the corridor. I remember looking over at her, and her nodding at me, and me nodding back. We were both quite taken aback, and she said, "Why now?" It's true. We still had a fair bit of time left.
It's not as if I was frustrated thinking it wasn't me who got the confession, it was my colleague. That's not the way it works. Obviously, I would have preferred it to have been me, but we don't think of it like that. Our sole aim is to solve the crime.
We're satisfied because now we know what happened. It's important for us to know that. But we can't be seen to be rejoicing about a man going to prison for a long time. So when I come back with a statement for him to acknowledge, read and sign, I must remain professional and not show my satisfaction. It was important to get this confession. Firstly, so that he could be prosecuted, but also for us, because that's our job, and for the victim's family, so that they can understand what happened. He was the only one who could tell us what had really happened. Only the perpetrator of the crime could give us the missing facts and explain the crime scene.
3 months later, Adriano Araujo Da Silva retracted his confession in front of the examining magistrate.
He's withdrawn his statement, claiming it was made under pressure while he was in police custody, which is utter nonsense. If you look at the 48 hours he spent in custody, I don't reckon he spent more than 8 hours being interviewed. That's nothing. It's not surprising that he's withdrawn it, though. It's a tactical move by the defense lawyer.
Mr. Araujo Da Silva isn't saying that he was maltreated during his time in police custody, or that he was put through the ringer. That's not the issue. What Mr. Araujo Da Silva is describing is the way in which he was forced to say what the police wanted to hear, and to make confessions in a case with no witnesses, based on evidence that is almost 10 years old. So, the confession was crucial in this case.
After his first trial in January 2012, he was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment without any possibility of parole for the first 20 years. In April 2013, in the Court of Appeal, he accused police officers of having put pressure on him while he was in custody. To clarify the matter, the magistrate authorized the screening in court of the 4th interview, in which Adriano Araujo Da Silva recounts the facts calmly and without any intervention from police officers. That screening was the deciding factor. Adriano Araujo Da Silva was sentenced to 30 years imprisonment without parole for the murder of Jeanette O'Keefe.
This is exactly what we wanted, but I guess we just are so happy to actually hear this.
Yeah, finally.
Still in shock.
It's been a long time, but this is the maximum. We couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah.
Just relieved, really.
We're exhausted, emotionally exhausted.
What I will take away from this case is, first of all, continued contact with the family. I'm still in touch with the O'Keefe family. I grew up with this case, so it feels special to me. I spent 8 years working on it. That's a lot. So there is a certain satisfaction from having brought it to a conclusion after 8 years. We never lost hope. We never gave up. We kept plugging away at it, and in the end, that paid off. So I think we can say we did a good job.
To this day, from the confines of his cell, Araujo Da Silva is still proclaiming his innocence.